Alright, here we are. We're going to go ahead and focus on these parts again. We just created the first part. I'm going to save this current part here, save as, and I'm going to go ahead and save it as Loft part edits. And we're eventually going to make some edits to this. So we're going to go to next and edit based on the dimensions you see here. So first thing we want to do is change the variables, because this is the first issue that we run into. On the SOLIDWORKS certification test, you will notice that there are some variables that are going to be placed. So this is a good place to start. So all of the dimensions stay the same, except what you see different. So here we're going to go ahead and change these first. So we'll come back. We have 30, 135, 15. Those are the main ones that we have to deal with. So we're going to go edit our equations. And it's 30, 135, and 15. And everything else adjusted accordingly. We're going to press OK, and notice that that's all good. Alright. So now what we want to do is we want to add in these cuts, and we're going to add in that hole. And there's a few things that look a little strange here, but we're going to go ahead and adjust it anyway. So we're going to come back and take a look here. So it's very, very common to want to, I'm going to hide this plane. It's very common to want to select this and cut through it. But if I do, and I'll just show you quickly what happens, if I was to go ahead and just offset entities inward, let's do 2, reverse, and reverse it. And if I was to do this and I was to cut, I want you to notice that if I cut, it's going to go parallel. It's going to go this way. That's not what we want. I can even show you if I do this and cut all the way through, you get some undesired results. You're going to say, well, Reynolds, that's not what the part looks like. And I'm going to say, no, that's definitely not. So we're going to fix that. So we're going to go ahead and undo that. And this sketch really doesn't help us much. So I could do another thing. I can move that sketch or project that sketch, but that's a more advanced technique. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this sketch because we don't need it. And instead, I'm going to draw on this plane. If I do this, I can select this whole face and I can offset entities inward. And here the offset is 2 units in. So we're going to do that. Press the check. And if you follow these, it says from back here it's 15. So we're going to go ahead and take this line, offset it 15. And we're going to make sure it goes in the correct dimension. And then we're going to take this one and offset it 1, because that's what it says. See, 1. And then from there to there is 15, so we do it again. You have to kind of zoom in to kind of see what's going on here, but it's you'll see that it's meant for this one to go in 15. So we offset the entities 15. Reverse, good, and then we have a 1 unit difference. So that 1 unit difference, if we take a look, is going to go here, offset 1, there. And now we can use trim, and we can trim off all the excess. And finally we can come in here and trim, because we want to cut just the insides. We should have nice, beautiful features. Notice that when I cut through and do an extrude cut through all, I just have to do through all once. It goes through and it cuts it just the way I want it. Well, that ends up being perfect. So there's no other things to change here. So what I'm going to do now is adjust. You probably realize that something has changed. I don't know if you realize it, but there's this distance B, and if I go back to the previous one, probably notice whether it was there or not. It was there, but nobody actually used it. So if you take a look, 45 plus 45 plus, and this was 30, ended up being B, right? Let's keep that in mind for a second. So I'm not sure if many of you caught this part, but if we take a look, so if this was 30, okay, where is it? D, so we do this, and let's pull a calculator here so you can kind of see what's happening. So first of all, it's 135 divided by 4. And then we're going to add the 45 plus the 45. Well, we have a discrepancy here because that's definitely not what it is. So we need to subtract that from 135 minus the 123.75, and we have to divide that by 2. This is the extra distance we have to move those planes out, 5.625. I know not many of you caught that, and for the purposes here, if you did or didn't do that, that's probably going to cause some discrepancy. But I would like to make a note that you should really pay attention to all of the parts of the drawing. So for those of you who probably started this drawing from scratch, maybe you didn't make that mistake and you caught it. But if you didn't catch it, then you realize that what I'm about to do right now is going to adjust the part quite a bit. So I'm going to come back to the plane, and we just calculated the 5.625. Again, you take this, you divide by the 4, and then we want to make sure that we subtract that. So really what we're doing is we're taking this dimension here and we're using it for the plane difference. So we're going to come back to this plane and we're going to edit. And we said we're going to add 5.625, I think, to it. So we're going to make this 50.625. It moves it slightly, just a little bit more, makes it a little longer, makes it look nicer. And then if we were to go ahead and check the dimensions just to make sure we are correct, we can then go ahead and do this. And you'll probably realize that the distance is 135. So sometimes some parts are adjusted and you don't catch them. So that's just a moment that I'd like you to know. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and take the cut extrude and we're going to mirror that about the top plane. So we'll go to features, mirror, and make sure geometry pattern is checked, and we'll check that off. So that all part is done. Now we have to go ahead and add this countersink head cap. So this is on this side. And we're going to do this actually with, instead of a sketch, we're going to use the hole wizard. So we'll go to features, hole wizard, and we're going to go ahead and choose ANSI metric. And this was a countersink socket head cap screw. But it was, well, we're going to do this because it's countersink. And we're going to say socket countersunk head cap. This was, I believe, M10. And we can show the custom sizing. Notice that the custom sizing is the sizing that we need. Because it's the sizing that we need, that's perfect. End condition says through all. So for those of you who probably were looking for the hidden lines here and said that, well, I don't see the hidden lines for the hole. If you filled it in, that's wonderful that you filled it in, but this part is what's telling us it has to go through everything. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that it fits here and it does go through everything. So I'm about to adjust that size, or adjust that now, and we'll go ahead and pick the position on this plane, and then here just place it in the middle, press escape, and then we can do some center lines. Make this vertical, and that's nice and perfect in the middle. And if we have this go through, you see there's a little bit of this here. So there's going to be a small discrepancy in the part. If you did this correctly up to this point and you made it just like this and turned it in, you actually are correct. We're going to go ahead and take a look. The mass properties is 359.18. But some of you would probably have said, Reynolds, I didn't do that. I went back here and I filled this in. And I said that's what it had to be instead. So that means you made this this tab after the fact. But there's a little dependency on this. So some of you probably just selected this and you came in and you wanted to create a rectangle. Some of you have done this. I actually have seen this happen. And we're going to go ahead and pull this over to here. Make sure it's coincident. And we're going to do features extrude. This is what I've noticed some of you do or have done. And we'll get up to surface, and we're going to choose select that surface right there, and we're going to say OK. And now that we have this, you'll probably see that the mass is going to be slightly different. So notice it's a little different. So that actually doesn't belong there. It should be 359.18. That extra little bit that you add is going to be just out of that 1% part. But this would be the finished part after making the necessary adjustments. All right.